Guess what time it is? It is Marrow Strixhaven Bingo time. So yeah, Wizards of the Coast were lovely enough to give me a good head start with Bingo card before preview season, and then they were also kind enough to give me a bunch more previews on the first day, which was lovely, and then they've given me enough time to record and edit and upload this video as soon as possible without having to add anything else into it, which is always lovely. So thank you very much, Wizards of the Coast. Really appreciate that. It means that I can get on with my human life, and then we can go and talk about Magic the Gathering and on the internet. So yeah, here we are. It's bingo time. The first card and the first bingo tick is our first bingo box tick is the Triad Druid box, and that is done by this 3 mana value legendary mythic creature, Willow Dusk, the Essence Seer. Seer, like somebody who can scry. Seer. Seer. Willow Dusk is a 3 mana value Golgari legendary creature for 1 generic and then 1 black, 1 green mana. It is obviously a Triad Druid, which is fun to say, and it has 3 power and 3 toughness and an ability, and that ability is pay 1 and tap. Put +1/+1 counters on target creature equal to the amount of life you've either gained or lost this turn, whichever is higher, and activate this only as a sorcery. Right, so obviously this is actually quite a cool ability. The first thing that I thought of was the Tree of Redemption, the 3 mana value tree from Innistrad, the original Innistrad block, which is a 0/13, and you can tap it just to swap your life total and its toughness. So obviously you go down, then you get to put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, and then you go back up next turn. So that would be cool. That looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to play with. Anyway, you're in Commander. You can also do it with Keurig, Son of Yawgmoth, which is you wouldn't be able to run it in a Keurig deck, but you would be able to put Keurig in an Essence Seer deck, where you just pay a bunch of life into Phyrexian mana symbols and all that stuff. Lose a bunch of life, tap it, bang, massive creature, hit for a lot. I don't really see it making much of an impact in Standard. I mean, it's a 3/3 for 3. Obviously, that's a good baseline rate, but being legendary means it's going to be a little bit difficult to play around with. And the ability doesn't seem to have too much support. Obviously, there's the white-black life gain deck going around. We've still got Veto, the Dusk Rose in Standard at the moment, which is cool. So obviously there's that side of it, and green obviously has quite a lot of instant life gain, but I just don't think there is enough pieces there to make a deck that really wants to either at least build around. Well, I might be sharp in a 2 in a green black or a junk deck, but I don't really play much real Standard at the moment. I'm just on best of 1 trying to get my dailies. I think it's a cool card. I like it. I don't rate it as highly as I rated Professor Onyx. So in Limited, I think it might synergize better than it would do in Standard, because obviously, I don't know if you've seen it, but there are pest creatures in the green-black archetype in the Witherbloom colours in Strixhaven. You get little green-black pests, which are 1/1s, and when they die, you gain a life, so there's at least that. I rank it maybe mid-tier for Standard, high tier for Commander, and somewhere between mid to high tier for Limited. It's a mythic, so it's obviously not got sharp in every single game. But I reckon the games it does do, if you actually built around it, which I never do in draft because I'm just not a good drafter. I've tried. Something I'm learning. If you build around it in draft, you end up with a 3 mana 9/9, which would be cool eventually. But for the most part, I see it sort of hitting the battlefield, maybe making a block or dissuading a few attacks, and then getting removed before it gets overwhelmingly good. So that's my take on Willow Essence Seer, which is really difficult to say. So lots of assonance and sibilants going through there. But yeah, I'm probably completely wrong about that. But yeah, that's my take. She seems cool. It's really nice art, and Golgari is always beautiful. Moving on. Okay, so the rare cycle of lands. That's the next tick on the bingo box. It's the enemy versions of the Shadow over Innistrad reveal lands, which I rate quite highly. I know a lot of people don't like them. They don't have basic land types. They don't necessarily come in untapped very often, especially if you're playing greedy mana bases, because you have to balance them out with basics. But I like dual lands that reward you for playing basics. I think they work really well. It's a good budget option as well, which I like. And honestly, I think because I play aggressive decks quite often and I play budget decks quite often, having a dual land that will likely come in untapped within the first 2 or 3 turns is always good. It's basically just a free roll in that, and then my curve tends to top out 4 or 5 most times, usually a lot lower than that. My self-mill deck in mono black at the moment tops out 1 4-drop, which is a 4-castable card, which really comes down on turn 3 at 2 mana. So yeah, it's towards the end you just sort of you don't need the untapped land straight away, and if you've got the unfortunate hand where you've got 4 of them all tapped, it's really not that big of a deal, because by turn 3 you'll have either drawn another land, which hopefully will be a basic, or you'll be spurting out trouble for your opponent. So yeah, I like these lands. They're not the best, obviously. They're not like fetches or shocks or the original alpha, beta, unlimited restricted duels, but they're good. I like them. I vibe with them. There's not much to say here. People who like talking about lands a lot more than me will talk about lands a lot more than me. So yeah, moving on. We have a double face card, which if we were playing with a different bingo card would be a tick on itself, because it's a double face card with a creature on both sides, which was one of Maro's teasers, but we didn't get that one. Instead, we have to talk about these this creature card that could be 2 different creatures for a different reason, and that reason will be very apparent when we get through it. So, Cayenne, Dean of Substance, is a 3 mana value legendary elf druid and rare for 2 generic mana and a green, with the ability tap, exile the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put a study counter on it. It also has the ability 4 and a green, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each different mana value among non-land cards you own in exile with study counters on them. As it is a dual face card, on the back it is Ibrahim, Dean of Theory, a 4 mana value blue legendary creature bird wizard for 2 and 2 blue mana. Ibrahim has flying and the ability X blue and tap, exile the top X cards of your library and put a study counter on each of them. Then you may put a card you own in exile with a study counter on it into your hand. So obviously there is a lot to break down here, but the bit that ticks off a bingo card for us is the otherwise put a study counter on it. Now, talking about the card itself, I actually really like the design. I think it's a cool play on having synergizing legendary creatures. Obviously, I think this was sort of designed with Commander in mind, and avoiding using the partner mechanic or partner with mechanic. I just think it seems quite balanced, because obviously the 2 sides of the creature card, they work with each other. Ibrahim, the bird wizard, exiles cards and with study counters on them straight from your library and then takes them back. And Cayenne, Cayenne's a pepper. Cayenne Obviously, looks at the top card of your library. If it's a land, goes into your hand, which is always good. You want that sort of like pseudo card draw, and puts things into exile with suddenly cancels them otherwise, which, you know, bingo, tick. But the bit that synergizes better with Ibrahim is the 5 mana fractals creation at the end. So you're obviously ramping or pseudo ramping with Kyan's first ability, and then towards the late game, if you've exiled a bunch of cards with the Ibrahim side, then you get to build big fractal creatures. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's actually relatively reasonable. I do like the flip side of the inclusion of it, because in Constructed, if you want to play 4 of this effect, or if you want to play the 2 creatures, it's not going to feel like a dead card in your hand if you've already got one on the battlefield. I think it's going to be very unlikely that you draw 3 of them and can't play them all out, because one's going to be played on one side, one's going to be played on the other side, and then by the time you've got the 3rd card in your hand, one of the first 2 creatures that you've played will have been dealt with, or you're in a winning position, so it doesn't really need to go out of your hand. So yeah, I think it's going to be fun. There's obviously a bunch of different one of these. Not only are there deans for every single college, so you're going to have a total of 5 double-faced card creatures with legendary creatures on either side with complementing abilities and different colors, which is going to be cool. But also, you've got Will and Rowan Kenrith. They've appeared, and they're double-faced commanders, double-faced planeswalkers, which was an interesting thing. So yeah, obviously, double-faced cards are back. All right, now this is a cool one. The next bingo card tick that we've got is the new keyword, the new Evergreen keyword, which I am honestly the most excited for out of the ones that we've got today, the bingo card. I personally really enjoy the introduction of new Evergreen mechanics and keywords. Obviously, very recently we got mill as an actual word, which is always nice, but sticking cards into your graveyard from your library has been there for many years, so it's not really like a returning a new mechanic in a sense, just like a quicker way of talking about that. And before that, the last Evergreen mechanic introduction we got was in Khans of Tarkir with Prowess. Obviously, it actually became an Evergreen in Magic Origins, but it was introduced Khans of Tarkir as the Jeskai mechanic. It worked really well. I think it was still around in Fate Reforged. This was exactly when I started playing, so I've got a bunch of cards from that era, from intro decks and stuff like that I'm like, yes, these are cards. I can't really separate them apart from going, oh yes, dragon good, dragon bad. So I've just wasted 2 minutes of your life talking about being introduced to a keyword, and we haven't actually got to it yet. The new keyword is ward. Let's break it down. So ward is an Evergreen mechanic now, which is nice. That is part of Wizards of the Coast's ongoing quest to fix Shroud. So originally, Shroud was the ability where nothing could target a creature. Obviously that's still around, but it doesn't go away. It's just not really produced anymore. And there were ups and downs of that. It meant that you could rely on having a creature on the board that wasn't taken out by a lightning bolt or by a murder or by a fatal push, which was a positive, but also you couldn't pump it, you couldn't save it with anything, you couldn't attach equipment to it because you can't target it with abilities you control either. So Wizards of the Coast didn't like that, and they produced Hexproof, which was basically all the good bits about Shroud with none of the bad bits. So you could put equipment and auras and pump spells on it, and you could make your guy big and they couldn't deal with it, which is great when you're sat there with like a 25/25 double striking, trampling, life linking super beast, and they're sat there with a bunch of targeted removal going, oh, I wish I could do something about this. But when you're sat there going, oh, I wish I could do something about this 25/25 lifelink, trampling, boggle. It's always a boggle. Thundering towards you in the battlefield, it does feel awful. So yeah, I think Hexproof definitely was a little bit of an overpowered mechanic, and they have said in the article that announced Ward that it's not going away. It's just sort of it's going to be a different breed of mechanic. It's not going to really appear on creatures. It's going to appear on combat tricks and stuff like that to save creatures, which is a much better way of doing it in my personal opinion. And now the next evolution of it is Ward. And Ward is this. Whenever an ability that your opponent controls targets its creature, counter it unless they pay 2 generic mana.
Okay, so slight interjection here. I just double checked whilst I was looking for images for this part of the video. Ward is actually just ward, the keyword, and then the cost is a separate thing. So you could have a ward 1 creature or a ward 7 creature, and it would cost them 7 mana or 1 mana, depending on the number that ward has. So ward is just whenever this creature gets targeted by a spell or ability, just it gets counted unless they pay X, where X is the number on the ward. I'm just going to show a screenshot of their description, and hopefully you should understand it from there.
Honestly, I think this is probably the best of both worlds. Like, it's this is an ability that's been around for quite a long time. It first appeared on Frost Giant. I think it probably appeared before then, but that's my first oldest remembrance of it. It's the Frost Giant ability, which is good. I think the countering of an ability unless they pay 2, it's a good tax effect. Hopefully Ward will be appearing primarily on white creatures, because white is the sort of taxing effect thing. Chances are it will just be taken by green though, or by blue, like on Frost Giant. I don't care what Wizards of the Coast say. Hullbreacher should have been white. But yeah, it's a good mechanic. I think it's going to be balanced quite well. Obviously, me as the Stompy player gets to build up my creature, which is nice, and there's a little bit of relief about it. You know, you're not just going to be like, oh, they've taken it out with a single card and 1 mana. It's going to be at least 3 mana, which is a good thing. Hopefully, I can't remember if the article covered it, but I think instances of ward stack. So if you have a creature that has ward, and then a creature that provides ward, or an equipment that provides ward, or an aura that provides ward, or whatever, they might have to pay 2 twice, if that makes sense. So they'll target it, it gets countered unless they pay 2, so they pay 2, and then it gets countered unless they pay 2, so they pay 2, and then your creature dies. But you know, obviously it's a very boring sounding ability, and I don't know where it will sit as a constructed thing, but I'm looking forward to it. It seems balanced. I think the most boring sounding abilities are the ones that you actually need to like pay attention to, because I think it's just going to be a nice, really well balanced interactive mechanic going forward. And once again, like I mentioned this in my last video, I think people are going to look back on Strixhaven really fondly because of like the introduction of ward and all these other things that they're trying out for the first time. So yeah, I like it. But yeah, I think unless more spoilers have come out recently, that's everything that I need to go over today. Once again, this is just for fun. I am definitely not getting any sort of anything out of doing this apart from getting to talk about Magic the Gathering. But yeah, I'd love for people to interact with me down below. Tell me if I've missed any bingo cards. Tell me if you've been playing along, because there are always bingo cards that you can make yourselves with the different teasers. Tell me how you're getting on if that's the case. And yeah, like point me in the direction of any cards that I've missed. No, I'll add them to my next video, because there's obviously going to be a next video. And yeah, I think that's everything that we need to go over today. So me and my goblin jacket are signing off now. Tatty bye. I love you, except for you. Don't love you. Oh, I almost missed one. Literally just after I finished recording, I double checked all the spoilers, making sure I didn't miss anything. And guess what? I missed something, so we're going to talk about that. Valentin, Dean of the Vein, is a 1 mana value black legendary creature vampire warlock, which is rare, with 1 power, 1 toughness, menace, and lifelink. It also has the ability,
If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with, when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. It is a modal double-face card, and on the backside is Lizette, Dean of the Root, a green 4 mana value legendary creature human druid for 2 generic mana and 2 green. That is a 4/4 with the ability, whenever you gain life, you may pay 1 generic mana. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. So this ticks off our Vampire Warlock bingo card slot, which is, I'm glad that I double checked because otherwise I would have missed it. Now let's talk about the card. So a 1/1 Menace lifelink for 1 mana is very good. Like I enjoy myself a nice 1/1 with keywords. They're always good, especially at 1 mana. Honestly, I would happily pay 2 mana for a 1/1 with 2 keywords, so that's always good. And it has static ability, which is fun as well. The ability is like it's low-key graveyard hate, and it also creates you creatures if you have the mana to pay for it. So yeah, I like it. Being able to exile things instead of things dying is good, especially against aristocrat decks or against decks like reanimator decks where you want things in the bin to bring them back. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to playing against this with my Archfiend's Vessel self-mill deck in standard, but I am looking forward to trying to slot it in when when other cards rotate out. I think it's pretty decent, and I always think low to the ground, aggressive legendary creatures should be given a lot more respect than they do. Like Isamaru, the classic 1 mana 2/2, it's a beating in limited, I think, but a 1 mana pseudo unblockable with an extra couple abilities is going to do really well. And obviously when it gets to the late game and you start killing their creatures and being able to pay to exile them, you get to create bugs, which are cool. I mean, sorry, they're pests, but they're bugs. I like calling them little bugs because they're kind of wood lousy. Yeah, the pest tokens, I think I talked about them earlier. I might have cut that bit, but they have the ability. They are 1/1s with the ability when this creature dies, gain 1 life. So if anybody is familiar with devil tokens, these are the opposite. So these are green and black, and instead of red, and instead of dealing damage, you gain life. So yeah, I like them. They're cute. Bugs are cool. On the flip side is the 4 mana 4/4 Human Druid. Human Druid? Yeah. Obviously, this MDFC is representative of the Deans of the Witherbloom. So I've talked about the Dean of Quandrix and now the Dean of Witherbloom. I don't think the other 3 schools will be covered by the bingo card, so I don't know, Google them if you want to pay attention to them. But yeah, the flip side, I'm not too bothered by it. Green does +1/+1 counters, so that's cool. Green does life gains, that's cool. It synergizes with the front half, like I said. If you've made a pest, you get to kill the pest and then gain the life. I like the idea, I like the design that they've used here, that it's not just an ability that happens if they're just around, like you actually need to put mana into it, so that's good. It's not going to be like overpowered, especially with like the exiling creatures from instead of letting them die side. The 2 mana seems to be a good activation cost rather than the 1 mana, because if you're playing the 1 mana, if you're playing the green side, it means you're playing green, which means you have access to like shitloads of ramp, which means that the single mana is basically always going to be available to you. So whenever you gain life, you get to put +1/+1 counters on creatures. But at least it is not the great henge, which all you do is just play creatures, make them big, and tap it and gain life and gain mana, which is really dumb. I'm so glad Eldraine is rotating out soon. But yeah, I think now that we've gone through all of the creature, all of the spoilers from the weekend and the day from the weekend and the days before the weekend,
that we can finally end this godforsaken video. Take care, be nice to people, and the pest tokens are really quite cute, which don't at me.